Hi guys, I'm just going to do a quick tutorial and talk through on how you can improve your hand path and the pitch of your club or the plane of your club on the way back and on the way down, which is an issue a lot of golfers really struggle with, which can cause lack of space when the hands pop out, which can cause steep golf clubs, which then manipulations on the way down. We see a lot of struggle with this move, especially out the top of the backswing into the downswing. A lot of confusion on how those hands work down. Now, there's some very key points that we've got to remember, and we've got to set the club into initially to make the transition as smooth as possible. Now, there's a tab on our gear system called the elbow plane. Now, this is a line that goes through sort of the base of the golf club through the elbows and creates like a plane line. Now, what we tend to see in most sort of really elite ball strikers is the initial club, as they work the club away, the club will really stay on that elbow plane line. Okay, so the hands, the club will align in initial takeaway. There won't be the club getting too far inside. That's the death move. We really don't want to see that club sucking in behind us. It's not the end of the world if the club stays slightly outside of the hands, okay, but we really don't want to see the club getting in behind that right hip, okay. It gets stuck straight away and we have issues then sort of pitching the club up on the proper plane, and then ideally I'm working the hands out the top. So the first initial movement that we're looking for is a move that sticks to that elbow plane line, and then as that club starts to pitch up, as the wrists start to hinge and set, the club will sort of pitch down towards the golf ball. So the extension line coming out of the butt of the club will be pitched somewhere towards that ball target line, okay? Now, once we're in this sort of mid backswing position, we tend to see the hand just raised slightly above that elbow plane line. Now, a real key point that we want to make sure is if we are someone who is swinging short of parallel at the top, say with an iron, we never want to see that club getting across the line at the top, okay? The only reason it would get across the line is if the swing length kept going back and the length of the club was long, okay? So ideally at the top, the golf club or the head of the club would sit slightly behind the hands so that the mass of the club has an easy transition, okay? Now, this is where people get slightly confused in terms of how the movement out the top happens. So say we're in a really nice spot at the top, club's in on plane, the head's slightly behind the hands, okay? We're not too steep and across the line. The first movement that most people make is just a rotation. Okay, so they have passive hands and they rotate the hips, rotate the torso, which does one thing to the hand path. Now that really pops the hand path out and above the ball line straight away. Okay, now what this is doing, this is really cramping someone for space. So we always hear people trying to get more open, I need to get open, and working on paths and having time through the golf ball. Now, as soon as these hands pop out and above that ball line, we're stuck. There's nowhere to go. Even though the club shaft has sat down, the hands are so out of position that we've got to do really contorted moves to get the club on the ball. That's going to stall our hip rotation out. That's going to keep our shoulder line really closed. It's going to deliver the vertical plane really high. The toe's going to be really sort of toe down, okay? Making ball striking very hard. We can't freewheel the golf club into the golf ball from there because we're having to manipulate our body positions. So where people go wrong is that most people out of the top have sufficient rotation, but they don't have enough lowering of the hands, okay? Now, if the club is set in the proper position at the top, where the head of the club is slightly behind the grip, okay, we don't need to make any really aggressive, shallow moves, okay? There are exceptions, you've got your Matt Wolfs, etc., but here's the exceptions, okay? We just need to lower this set, okay, the whole of this set, so that the head stays behind the grip, the hands are lowering at the floor, at the same time as the body and pelvis and torso are shifting forward and rotating. Now this gets the club transitioned really well, okay? So the hand path is a steep hand path out of the top. So the first movement is steep with the hands, then the hands will shallow out towards the golf ball later on in the downswing. Whereas most people have a very shallow hand path initially, then have to steepen it later on. Now, just because you've got a steeper hand path doesn't mean that the club's going to be steep. Okay, we've set the club into a basically like a pre-shallow position at the top. So the first movement is steep with the hands, which is going to keep that club head behind us, which is already set into that shallow position. Now, when the club is in this spot here, we can then just really rotate, turn, freewheel into the golf ball. There's no restrictions on our movements. We can hit it with full speed. The pelvis will continue to rotate and open up. The shoulder line will square itself up back to where we want it, okay, which is slightly open to fairly square. We don't have to stall any rotation out to get the golf club on the ball. Now we can see on our gear system that hand path initially at the top is very, very key. So the hands, the trick here is that the hands are working down whilst the body is rotating and shifting. Now, most people, the hands just stick to their body, the body rotates, they get the club into a really funky position here. It's really difficult to then get club on ball with any consistency. Different moves have to happen to hit the golf ball, and it gets out of control. That can also cause steep golf clubs as well. Okay, the hands pop out, the club shaft steepens, but we see so many times that people just don't coordinate the hands and the body working together. So you can't do enough of when you're at the top, just really feel in 2D, so you're just lowering your hands. Okay, so the body's not rotating, you're just lowering your arms down. Now you could say to me, well, the club's way behind me at this point. Well, as soon as I add rotation to this, the club is then much more on plane. Okay, we're in the perfect sort of tour position where most guys are. Okay, and from here we've got no restrictions, we can freewheel into the back of the golf ball.